This is a series of short videos created to help you in your preparation and understanding of the CLAT 2020 examinations. In this video, we will focus on providing you with an overview of the CLAT 2020 examination format, the skills and abilities that are being tested, and references to the kind of material that the question passages will be sourced from. The UG CLAT 2020 seeks to evaluate the comprehension and reasoning skills of candidates. Overall, it is designed to test the aptitude and skills necessary for a legal education rather than prior knowledge, although prior knowledge occasionally may be useful to respond to questions in certain sections, as we will discuss later. The UG CLAT 2020 examination questions are divided across the following 5 subjects: English language, current affairs including general knowledge, legal reasoning, logical reasoning, and quantitative techniques. The CLAT 2020 exam is paper-based. It is a 2-hour-long examination with 150 multiple-choice questions and made up of sections corresponding to the 5 subjects previously mentioned. Approximately 20% of those questions fall under the English language section, 25% under current affairs, 25% under legal reasoning, 20% under logical reasoning, and 10% under quantitative techniques. Each question carries 1 mark, making the maximum marks to be scored 150. For every incorrect answer, there is a negative mark of 0.25. It is important to keep the marking system in mind while answering the exam questions and to turn in your responses accordingly. For example, if you answer 110 questions correctly, 4 incorrectly, and leave 36 questions unanswered, then your final score will be 109 on 150. From each subject, you will be asked questions that seek to assess your ability to understand the question and to choose the correct answer from the responses provided. In the English language section of the UG CLAT 2020, you will be provided passages of about 450 words each. These passages will be derived from contemporary or historically significant fiction and non-fiction writing and would be of a standard that a 12th standard student may be able to read in about 5 to 7 minutes. Each passage will be followed by a series of questions that will require you to demonstrate your comprehension and language skills, including your abilities to read and comprehend the main point discussed in the passage, as well as any arguments and viewpoints discussed or set out in the passage, draw inferences and conclusions based on the passage, summarize the passage, compare and contrast the different arguments or viewpoints set out in the passage, and understand the meaning of various words and phrases used in the passage. A few examples of the sources include books like Poonachi, or The Story of a Black Coat by Perumal Murugan, Ramchandra Guha's Introduction to Nationalism by Rabindranath Tagore, or Bill Bryson's At Home, A Short History of Private Life. Sources can also include stories and written accounts like Ranu Bhattacharya's memoir, Her Father's Memories Were Slipping Away, She Made Him Tell Stories So That He Could Hold On to Them, published by Scroll, or an article titled How Our Home Delivery Habit Reshaped the World, written by Samant Subramanian and published by The Guardian. In the current affairs section, you will be provided passages of up to 450 words each. The passages will be derived from news, journalistic sources, and other non-fiction writing. The questions may include an examination of legal information or knowledge discussed in or related to the passage, but would not require any additional knowledge of the law beyond the passage. Each passage will be followed by a series of questions that will require you to demonstrate your awareness of various aspects of current affairs and general knowledge, including contemporary events of significance from India and the world, arts and culture, international affairs, and historical events of continuing significance. Examples of the journalistic sources include articles from newspapers such as the Economic Times or the Hindu. For instance, articles like Donald Trump impeached on 2 counts by House, setting up Senate trial by Billy House, or an article from the Hindu titled Explained, President's Order Scraps Its Predecessor and Amends Article 370, written by Krishnadas Rajgopal. Another example would be an explainer what happened at the Battle of Bhima Koregaon in 1818, taken from News 18. Other examples could include features like Time 2019 Person of the Year or Chief of Defense Staff holds key to modernization of forces, written by Lieutenant General Dr. Prakash Menon and published by The Telegraph. While you do not need to read the news daily, it does help to stay familiar with newspapers and articles in order to better understand the questions that you will encounter in the exam. In the legal reasoning section, you will be expected to read passages of around 450 words each. The passages may relate to fact situations or scenarios involving legal matters, public policy questions, or moral philosophical inquiries. You will not require any prior knowledge of law. You will benefit from a general awareness of contemporary legal and moral issues to better apply general principles or propositions to the given fact scenarios. Each passage would be followed by a series of questions that will require you to identify and infer the rules and principles set out in the passage, apply such rules and principles to various fact situations, and understand how changes to the rules or principles may alter their application to various fact situations. The questions in this section will be based on material drawn from sources that include news articles and books associated with topics of law, as well as certain passages created specifically for the examination. Examples of sources for the questions can include editorials and opinions like Unfulfilled Promise on Personal Data Protection Bill, an editorial published in the Hindu, Welcome Move to Ease Starting Up Pains, an editorial published in the Economic Times, or What is Citizenship by Shruti Jain, taken from The Wire. Sources could also include books like A People's Constitution by Rohit Dey or Thinking Like a Lawyer by Frederick Shaw. The logical reasoning section of the UG CLAT 2020 will include a series of short passages of about 300 words each. Each passage will be followed by one or more questions that will require you to recognize an argument, its premises and conclusions, read and identify the arguments set out in the passage, critically analyze patterns of reasoning and assess how conclusions may depend on particular premises or evidence, infer what follows from the passage and apply these inferences to new situations, draw relationships and analogies, identify contradictions and equivalence, and assess the effectiveness of arguments. The questions in this section will be based on material drawn from sources that include opinion and editorial pieces from newspapers and magazines, and essays on moral philosophy available online and in various books. Some passages will be created specifically for the examination. The quantitative techniques section of the UG CLAT 2020 will include short sets of facts or propositions, graphs or other textual, pictorial or diagrammatic representations of numerical information, followed by a series of questions. You will be required to derive information from such passages, graphs, or other representations and apply mathematical operations on such information. The questions will require you to derive, infer, and manipulate numerical information set out in such passages, graphs, or other representations, and apply various 10 standard mathematical operations on such information, including from areas such as ratios and proportions, basic algebra, mensuration, and statistical estimation. The questions in this section will be created for the examination, with some graphs and histograms derived from public sources. You can review sample questions and other resources by visiting our website at consortiumofnlus.ac.in. In the next few videos in this series, we will explore each subject in greater detail, focusing on the kinds of questions that will be a part of the exam, along with a discussion on the ways in which you can prepare for the CLAT 2020.